Is it all set? Okay, let's get Miss Costin in here.
Okay. Stop the tape.
Okay.
Mike, stop recording.
Thanks for doing this. If you want to come around.
What is your name?
Jean Costin.
How long have you been teaching here for?
Do I have to really say? I'll say 20 plus years.
Okay.
I was just a child when I started.
Okay. Is there a difference in the students here than in the past that there were? Is there a difference between the students like 20 years ago and to the students right now?
I think so. Some good things and some not so good things. I think maybe 20 years ago, children behaved a little better, showed more respect, were happy with what you did. But then also, I think children nowadays are looking for challenges. They need to learn more, and they're more attuned to what's going on.
Talk to her about her times at school.
Okay. What was it like when you went to school here compared to what it is now?
Okay, well, in the dark ages when I was here in Maplewood, it was a lot like it is now. Friendly, people tried to help you. Teachers were serious about teaching you. We did have some fun, though. We used to do every month, one grade had to do some kind of performance, whether it be reciting things or singing songs or whatever. We didn't have as much gym as you have. We didn't have art. We only had music once a week. We didn't have all those nice plays and chorus and singing. But we had a lot of fun. But we had to work very hard.
Okay. How many principals do you think you've had how many different principals do you think have passed between you and school and since you've been teaching?
Since I've been teaching, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6?
5 or 6.
Can you name some of their names?
Oh, sure. When I first started, it was Mrs. Shalou, and she was the principal when I was going to school here. And the year I started was her last year. And then there was a man called Baker Haig, and then there was a Mr. Oysterhout or something like that. He was in between. And then there was Dr. Kells, and there was Mrs. Nagler, and Mrs. Zaleb, she was Mrs. Franklin then. She was in there for a little while. There's Mr. Steele. And I think there was somebody else that I'm forgetting, but I don't remember.
Okay. Any more questions?
Whatever comes to mind. Any talk about favorite teachers? Maybe.
Oh yeah. Who was your favorite teacher when you went to school?
I think my favorite teacher when I went to school here was my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Conley, because she was a no-nonsense lady, but she had a wonderful sense of humor. And her favorite thing was history, and that's my least favorite thing. And she always made it fun and interesting. And later on, when I became a teacher here, she and I became very good friends. And it's just interesting. But I think probably her, because she was no nonsense, but yet she had a great sense of humor.
Thank you for your time, Miss Costin.
Oh, you're very welcome, Miss Ellett. I enjoyed doing it. I just wish I had known I was going to be on stage.
Who was your favorite teacher, Miss Costin? Okay. Oh, she taught history? That's interesting.
What happened to all the... Okay.
That was recording.
Get it off the recording?
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay, just go ahead and start like this. Okay. Start with that. Follow up with that. Go to that. Like that, and then just talk about the same question you asked Ms. Costin. How are kids different?
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just write that down?
Write it down and let's get started because we gotta go.
Okay.
Okay. You got it set up so it's not gonna tip? Okay. All right. All right. Why don't you pull back just a little bit?
I was just setting it up for the close-up shot.
Good. Okay. Good. All right.
And you have to tell me when to do each one.
You ready, Miss Elliott?
It just looks like it's tipped a little bit.
It is. It's landing to the back.
You know what you need to do is...
Where do you want me to sit?
Okay. You can sit right there. You don't have to be on camera. Okay? All right. All right. Go ahead. You go ahead and cue them. Sorry.
What is your name?
This is Kelly.
How long have you been teaching for?
I've been here at Maplewood for about 19 years, and I started teaching in 1971 in area schools.
Did you go to school here before you began teaching?
Yes, I went to Maplewood School.
Who was your favorite teacher?
Who was my favorite teacher while I was here at Maplewood?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I had several favorite teachers, but probably the one that most impressed me was Mrs. Sheldon, the 4th grade teacher. I liked the way she read to us every day, and she was strict, but she had a nice way about her.
How are today's students compared to the students from the past?
Well, compared to what children were like when I was a student here, well, I think they're pretty much the same, except that maybe children today are exposed to many more things than they were when I was little. I think because of the kind of popular culture that's around them, things that they see on television, being exposed to information through computers, and they're involved in a lot more activities than children were when I was in school. So I think they're exposed to more.
What was it like when you went to school here?
What was it like? It was wonderful. But a little different in regards to maybe the kinds of subjects we had. Like today you have art and music. We had music, but we had industrial arts. And when I attended here, we didn't have Russian class. But we had all the other subjects that you studied.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Skelly.
Well, thank you.
Who was your favorite teacher? Okay. Are you guys looking forward to the year with your next teachers?
What is your name?
Debbie Sablocki.
What is your job at Maplewood School?
I'm a secretary in the office.
Did you go to school here?
Yes.
Okay. Who was your favorite teacher?
Mrs. Sheldon. She was my 4th grade teacher.
Are there any difference between now and when you went to school here?
Mostly I would say, I think times have changed, not so much the building, but times have changed. Things seemed a lot simpler then.
What subjects did you learn and what special activities did you do?
Really get my brain working, huh? In 5th grade, like you do your project for the Legion, we had to pick a state, and all it was a booklet. It wasn't as big as it is now, doing the projects, being over to the Legion, but it was just a booklet.
How long have you been working here at Maplewood?
Approximately 8 years.
Did you have different teachers than, is there any different teachers here than before when you went to school?
Oh yes, they're all new teachers.
Like, did Mrs. Kelly or Miss Costin?
No, they were in school when I was in school.
Oh,
They weren't teaching here, but they were here in school.
Thank you for your time, Mrs. Zavaki.
Oh, they made it very easy.
Terrific.
That was simple.
What subjects did you learn and what special activities did you do? What is your name?
Miss Spiak,
How long have you been teaching for?
20 years.
Are there any difference between now and when you went to school here?
Yes, when I went to school here, I was a student, and now I'm a teacher.
Okay.
No, there are a lot of differences because the world is different, and people are different today, and society is different today, and inventions that we have today. We didn't have a computer room when I went to school here because computers were not for home or school use then. There were computers, but they were more like for science. And there was a lot of technology that we have today that we didn't have when I was a student here. So of course there's a lot of differences. Some good, some bad.
How are today's students different from the students from the past?
I think the students from the past had a much simpler life and a more unchanging life. I think students of today have a lot of home situations to deal with that students of when I went to school here didn't have to deal with as much. I think students today have a lot more to deal with.
What subjects did you learn and what special activities did you do when you went to school here?
Well, we learned all subjects. It was everything that was involved. Of course, like I said, not computers or anything like that. But everything was really special. One nice thing we did was each grade had a play every year, which was very nice. So like every year at the 3rd grade and the 4th grade, and everyone else put on a play, which was lovely. We did some different things. But the world is different and things change, and like I said, there's a lot of differences, some good, some bad.
What part did you play in the play?
What part did I play in a play? Oh, all different kinds of parts. When I was in kindergarten, I was one of the flowers that sang in Alice in Wonderland. Miss Costin played Alice. I was so jealous. And I can remember when I was in 8th grade, between, you know how like when when you change a scene and they close the curtains and it's kind of like you're just sitting there. My friend Carol and I were clowns, and we went out and just improvised, and we were dressed as clowns, and we entertained the audience, and that was a lot of fun.
Okay. Who was your favorite teacher?
Who was we were very, very lucky because there was a lot of very, very good teachers. Why can't you do that? Ryan saying something to Ashley. My favorite teacher was I liked them all, but interestingly enough, one of my favorite teachers was not my kindergarten teacher. And here I am. Maybe I'm making up for it. But Mrs. Eldridge was my first grade teacher. She was lovely. Mrs. Krause read as Mrs. Pigglewiggle. Mrs. Sheldon was my fourth grade teacher. Mrs. Lockhart was great. She was my fifth grade teacher. Mrs. Hoffman was my sixth grade teacher. I forgot. Mrs. Smith was my second grade teacher. Miss Morrison was my kindergarten teacher. And my seventh grade teacher was Mrs. McDermott. And my eighth grade teacher was Mrs. Powers. And what was very nice that when I got to be a teacher, Mrs. Sheldon was still a teacher here, and Mrs. McDermott was still a teacher here, and Mrs. Lockhart, but then she was called Mrs. Conley, was still a teacher here. So 3 people that were my teachers were also my colleagues later on, so that was kind of nice.
Did you have Russian?
No, I came to school before they had Russian. That's how old I am.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Ms. Biak.
My pleasure.
Honored to ask you. You don't have. You can respond. Do you want Ms. Biak to respond to it, or?
Unless you want to. No, I don't.
Who was your favorite teacher?
And now my favorite teacher is all my students, because I learned from them.